successful series yet again for the New York Mets in grand fashion as they take 2 of 3 from the Baltimore Orioles. Welcome to the Queen's Connection, episode number 35. I am your host, Andrew Patton, joined by the co-host, Corne Hogbeen. Corne, quite an exciting series, to say the least, against the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah, seems like this ball club plays their best baseball against good teams and probably their worst baseball against bad teams. Last week we thought we have 6 games against two bad teams at home. We should at least win more than we're losing, and they went 3-3. And then you know that the Orioles came to town, who are obviously a very good and young and exciting ball club. And then we win 2 out of 3. So all the vibes are trending high, and hopefully the vibes will stay high for a very, very important 10-game road trip coming up. We will definitely talk about that, but it's a great moment to get some momentum going, and the way the Mets won 2 games in this series. Obviously, that plane flight to the West Coast was a lot sweeter than when we would have lost that game.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The flight out west to San Diego was probably a joyful one, and I think they were saying in the broadcast it's about a 6-hour flight. But after that game, it probably didn't feel like that for those guys as they were uh, celebrating pretty hard on the field. I can't imagine what the clubhouse and the potential plane ride out was like after the game. Thanks to uh, someone who was on the Mets uh, bleep list a couple years ago from the fans, I would say, and now he is being revered by the fans and saying all the right things, and now everyone loves Jesse Winker, and we'll talk about Jesse later in this podcast because there's some good predictions on the panel for this series, and we'll pat ourselves on the back later in the episode. We won't do that right away because we're humble guys, but we will give ourselves some credit when it is due. But let's just get right into this thing with this Baltimore Orioles series starting on a Monday night, a 4-3 win, a walk-off win thanks to Francisco Alvarez. Um, and to me, the headline of this game, despite Alvarez's heroics late in the game, was the start that the Mets got from David Peterson, going 7 innings of 6 hits, 3 runs, only 2 earned, 1 walk, but 8 strikeouts. Obviously, it kind of ended a little bit on the sour note. So with the balk and then the solo home run, which tied the game for the Orioles. But you just look at the start overall, and Peterson was really, really good. Now his 3 RA is his ERA is just a flat 3. Um, so I believe they say he has the best ERA on the starting staff right now. And I don't want to steal your thunder from the chat because you said it, so I'll give you the credit. But it's true that this Orioles team averaging 5 something runs a game. They're just a slugging team, and David Peterson was able to keep the ball on the ground for the majority of the night. So, have to give a good hat tip to David Peterson there. Another solid start on his end, and for some guys in the rotation that we'll get to in this podcast, not really pitching their best right now. To have someone like David Peterson kind of step up and take hold of a solid outing like that is very important for the Mets at this stretch of the season, and probably important for David Peterson going forward.
Yeah, he's been. I mean, he obviously has his fair share of issues. I think the whip is still on the higher part that you want, mostly because of the walks. But I think overall, you like what David Peterson has done this year, even with some control issues at times. He has kept opposing teams off the board most of the time, and even in his outings where he didn't necessarily have it, I can't really remember horrendous outings. So he mostly kept the team somewhat in the game if he didn't have his best stuff, and it shows with his win and loss records. Obviously, I'm not saying that wins and losses determine how a pitcher is pitching, but I think it does show that Peterson is has the ability to keep the ball to not falter too much and keep his team in a ball game. But this was a different outing than a struggling outing. This was complete control. I think he had 10 ground ball outs, 8 strikeouts, one fly ball out in the outing, which is obviously great. I probably missed some with that Matt because he went 7, so it's probably some missing, some outs missing there. Maybe a pop out, I don't know, or line out. I don't know how they do that on the box score. But he point is he got a lot of ground balls against a team that's noticeable hitting home runs, and that's what he's done all year. He keeps his home run rate very low. I think what was his 6th home run he allowed this year, if I heard that correctly and remembered that correctly, against Urias in that 7th inning. Earlier, he allowed an unearned run because of an error. I think he made his own error or something on the pickoff attempt to second base. So that was a little bit of his own doing, obviously. But yeah, just great. Then he had that balk. It was his first balk of his career. And then the pitch after he allowed that home run, which, like the Boots said, I don't think that's a coincidence that that happened right after. I think he was a little bit shocked. He didn't necessarily argue the balk, which to me was odd. And didn't maybe he didn't stop. Maybe he knew it. It looks like he knew it, but the Boot and I didn't really notice what he did wrong. So that to me was a little bit odd, but he probably knew what he did wrong. And then the next pitch went out, so could have been better. But overall, you still take it. He was on point. One thing David Peterson should stop doing, by the way, is when he's angry, choose his left arm to swing at things. I've noticed that a couple of times that when he gets mad, he throws his glove or anything, and I don't mind players getting mad because I like that they show that they care. But please don't do it with your left hand.
Well, he is a lefty, so I guess it's just natural for him, I guess. But
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're saying. You don't want David Peterson to be out this juncture of the season with a breaking a bone in his hand or anything like that, and now you got to call up Tyler McGill to fill that rotation spot, and that's a bit of a downgrade from David Peterson. So I know exactly what you're getting at there.
we have enough issues with a couple of rotations arms that we shouldn't lose probably the most dependable, maybe besides Manaya, the most dependable one in David Peterson. And people, I mean, obviously, David Peterson isn't perfect. Uh, at some point, the walks might get to him, but I think lately he has done a better job at limiting his walks, and he has done a better job at limiting runs. So I'm very pleased that we have David Peterson, not just for this year, but I think we also have a spot for him in next year's rotation, obviously. And that's good to have. It's good to have homegrown starting pitching because that's something we clearly lacked in recent years that we had to buy the Justin Verlanders, the Max Scherzers, the Severinos, Manayas, Quintanas. We had to buy a lot of starting pitching. And it's good to see that finally, over the last couple of years, we have dependable, homegrown starting pitching that are a little bit cheaper than signing Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, and you can spend different ways. So I'm very pleased that he took that next step.
And hopefully, there's a couple more arms in that system that are going to be coming up to the Flushing Queens in just a year or two. So let's keep that trend going. Hopefully, the Mets can keep that up, and uh, hopefully, someone that's going to start keeping it up is Francisco Alvarez, who hit the walk-off home run, like we said. And uh, Alvarez came back from the IL back in June and came back guns a blazing, and kind of since the All-Star break, maybe a little bit before then. He's been scuffling a little bit, and but he got that big home run, swinging 3-0, to the amazement of Ron Darling, I think it was in the broadcast booth, saying, probably take this pitch, just get on base, be the winning run on base, and Alvarez popped one over what Howie Rose calls the Great Wall of Flushing to win the game for the Mets. No, they talk about it on the broadcast, but I like to get your perspective on it. When a guy like Alvarez, who's so important to this team on both sides, defensively and offensively, but obviously offensively has been a bit of a struggle of late, to get a hit like that in that kind of atmosphere against that kind of team in the Baltimore Orioles that's fighting for the top spot in the AL East and is easily going to be a postseason team, uh, where the Mets are at right now, just how big, like that, it's obviously a big hit, but is that the kind of hit that you think for a guy like Alvarez, who's a pretty, I'd say, an emotional player, not like super hardcore, but you can tell, he's a pretty emotional guy. Just look at his home run celebration. Um, is that the kind of thing that could get Francisco Alvarez back on track and maybe I don't want to say carry the Mets because there's a lot of guys, but be a big impact on this team in the last 6 weeks or so to on this postseason push?
I mean, it's tough to say for certain, but it could be. One thing, 3-0, I would give Francisco Alvarez with the ability he has, with his power he has. I know he hasn't hit a lot of home runs this year, but he hit 23 last year. So we know that it's there, and it also provides a confidence boost, which he needed. So I would definitely give him the green light, and I'm happy he did, because hopefully it's the start of something good for Francisco Alvarez. On the other hand, I also think that there's maybe a little bit too much attention on Francisco Alvarez hitting ability. I don't know out of the top of my head what his OPS is right now, but I think it's around 720 or something. Maybe you can look it up quickly, because we have seen the OPS from Adley Rutschman, who has more home runs. Yes, I know he has more home runs, but I think Adley Rutschman stands at 750 and is seen as one of the best overall catchers in the game. Um, so that's not a tremendous difference in OPS for Alvarez and Adley Rutschman. So yeah, that's to me that's he's young. He's still very young, Alvarez. He has improved the defense immensely. I think he's becoming a very good defender, and I think the bat will come. But I also think it's maybe a little bit over the top to expect, like an 800 OPS if he can hit his fair share of home runs. I think he has the ability to hit more home runs than he did right now. But also he got hurt early on in the season, so um, I think his offense right now, with even before this home run, but obviously with the home run, um, is fine. It's not what you necessarily hoped in your dreams, but I think it's fine. And I'm curious to get your perspective of that.
Well, first I'll give you the OPS numbers. Francisco Alvarez, as of the morning of August 22nd, is 719. So you're pretty close to being spot on with that. And then Adley Rushman, 746. So you're right in the ballpark with those OPSs for someone who's just kind of
So that's
guesstimating, perhaps. So
yeah, I yeah was not that doesn't come out of the blue. Obviously, I've seen Rutschman play, so I've seen his OPS in recent days. Um, but that's 30 points difference. And then on one hand, you have a guy who everybody raves about in Adley Rutschman. I don't know the defensive metrics difference, um, but we know that Alvarez has done a good job defensively. Maybe not on all aspects of being a catcher, but we have seen the catcher's ERA. We have seen how pitchers like throwing to Alvarez. So he's definitely has done a good job, I would say, there. I think in that department, the difference offensively is not as large as you would probably say if you just listen how people talked about Adley Rutschman and Francisco Alvarez. And that's the point I'm trying to make, that I think it's not as terrible considering how the catcher's position is overall, so to speak.
Yeah, just looking at the numbers for Alvarez, the slug is maybe not where we would kind of want it. It's at 403 right now, but you have to take into account that he missed what almost 2 months with that thumb injury. He's now in a little bit of a lull, or he was in a little bit of a lull offensively. Like we were talking about, perhaps this is what's going to get him out of it. Um, but there's there's like no need to panic in my mind about Francisco Alvarez. We know we've seen the kind of player he can be um, for this team, and in his position too, it's kind of like shortstop, center field. It's those up the middle positions. If you're performing well defensively, you're still helping the team, even if maybe offensively your numbers aren't there. We go back to April when Lindor was, when those real had those really dreadful looking numbers on the video board, and when he would come up to bat, but he was still playing a Gold Glove caliber, shortstop position. So he's still helping the team in that regard. Um, Obviously, you'd like to, have see the production on both sides, but with those up the middle positions, if they're at least still contributing, on one side of the ball, I you should be happy about that. I mean, if that Francisco Alvarez, ends the season with this kind of a stat line, I wouldn't like hit the panic button and say that maybe we were wrong about Francisco Alvarez. Let's also take into account he's 22 years old. You know, he'll be 23 when next season comes around. So there's still so much good baseball ahead of him. He's still developing at the big league level with it being that young. So, if people are worried about Francisco Alvarez in the long term, I would say step back from that ledge a bit and take a deep breath and um, remember the kind of player that he has shown he can be. And then once he finds that consistency, then he's going to be easily a top five catcher in this game. We'll be talking about him with Will Smith and what JT Realmuto used to be, maybe was, so. Uh, but if there are people that are concerned about Francisco Alvarez, I would tell them to pump the brakes on that a little bit because I know we believe he's going to be a star catcher. And I know there's probably still people, in the league that believe that as well. So, no need to worry about Francisco Alvarez, and no one was worrying about him that night after hitting the walk-off home run to beat the Orioles. Now, if there's something to worry about, it was his battery mate the next night as we jumped to Tuesday night, where the Mets got themselves in a bit of a hole. And that was mostly as we see the James McCann bobblehead that someone had made for them. And yes, the McCannon let loose that night for the Baltimore Orioles. We can talk about that as well. We can get. I was thinking about that on the drive home because I was in Binghamton that night. I was thinking about the whole James McCann fiasco there with the Mets trading him and whatnot. But let's get back to uh, what I was trying to lead into, and that was Jose Quintana's poor outing. Going 5 innings, 8 hits, 7 runs, all of which were earned, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, and 2 home runs. So the home runs, I mean, we can beat this dead horse again if we want to, but home runs have been a major issue for Jose Quintana this year, along with some other things as well. Obviously, when the Mets get in a hole that big, it's hard to climb out. But they did make it a bit of a ball game. They made it 7-5 going to the ninth inning, but some poor play defensively. The Orioles scored two, and that kind of just sealed the deal there for an Orioles win. So let's get back to Quintana here. Uh, just just another bad outing for someone who I know the team is relying on, and I can do my translation again that I sent you in the text about the Mendoza quotes. But 4 starts in the month of August for Jose Quintana. He's pitched to an 8.27 ERA. The WHIP is 1.65. 12 walks in 20 and two-thirds innings pitched. 4 home runs allowed, so he's allowing at least one home run, or averaging one home run per outing. Um, at a terrible time in the season for this kind of stretch for Quintana, who from I would say middle of June to Um, the end of July was pretty solid for this team to had that kind of turnaround, and you thought that Quintana was back to being a reliable arm, but now these four straight outings have me a little concerned about him just because it's this juncture in the season. So I'll ask you the question: do the Mets have a Jose Quintana problem?
The Mets have a Jose Quintana problem, but the Mets also right now don't have a Jose Quintana solution. So we have to deal with it. There is no, in my mind, no other option besides when Christian Scott comes back, but that's not close to happening. The Mets don't have a, to me, a valuable option to replace Jose Quintana. And you can go to Tyler McGill and DFA Jose Quintana. But honestly, what you gonna do with an injury at that point? Are you gonna bring up Mike Fassel to make some starts? Are you? I mean, every guy right now in the minor leagues in AAA uh, are iffy. I would say maybe your best bet is Jose Buto, but he's now also that much of a reliever for that long of a time that he's not stretched out to be a starter right now. Um, so that's also not a possibility. Luke Casey has been very iffy in AAA and hasn't really performed well when he had the chance in the majors this year. Tyler McGill, I think we all know what's happening there. And also, I think Tyler McGill right now is too important to swap him in for Quintana because, like I mentioned, then you just lose uh, your fallback option. Maybe the Mets can hope that there's somebody who has been put on waivers by a team that is out of contention that maybe wants to save some money off a contract or something like that. Maybe the Washington Nationals will put Patrick Corbin. No, just kidding. No, that's not better than Jose Quintana. So I think the best bet what you have is hope that Jose Quintana refines his form. Um, but that's definitely not a given. It's not like right now I'm looking at his next start, probably Sunday against the Padres. Luckily against Martin Perez, I saw, who was also not having a great year. Kind of like the same type of numbers for soft tossing lefties. So um, we just hope that Jose Quintana refines his curveball and refines his control again. And so yeah, there's nothing else we can do right now, I think, and I don't see that there's something else that David Stearns realistically can do.
Yeah, and you asked Mendoza after the game because of now this is, like I said, four straight bad starts for Jose Quintana, and no, Mendoza basically said along the lines that they're committed to Quintana in the rotation, but really what that means to me is that it's what you said. They don't have any better options. I mean, you could call up Tyler McGill and have put him in there, but they're going to get to grandma's house different ways. It's going to be the same result with Tyler McGill. Your best option is probably Jose Buto, but he's he's locked into that bullpen right now. And if you wanted to get him back into a star role, you're going to have to stretch him out, and that's going to be extremely hard to do at this point in the season. Um, so you're kind of just stuck with Quintana for the rest of the way, unless, like you said, someone does what the Angels did last year and just DFA some guys because they want to get that money off the payroll. Do the Texas Rangers do that with Andrew Heaney or someone like that? That's kind of what you were alluding to about. That's probably your only possible upgrade way of doing it. Um, Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. We'll find out when it gets closer to August 31st, September 1st. Um, but yeah, for right now, as much as Jose Quintana is not pitching well, like you said, you're just gonna have to go into each start, cross your fingers a little bit that this is the outing that he maybe gets back on track. And I was thinking about this too in this 10-game road trip, but 7 of these 10 games are the most important ones of the season up to date. Um, it's probably good Jose Quintana's only pitching one of those games. No, and probably where I'd rather him pitch in San Diego than Arizona. I guess I don't know. I guess it's a pick your poison thing. With I guess I'm just thinking the ball flies in Arizona a lot more. So probably would rather have him pitch against the Padres, who he had a really good outing against back in June. So that's when he kind of started to turn things around in that middle of the summer stretch. So maybe now going up against the Padres again, he pitches well and he gets into a good late season stretch. So I guess we can just cross our fingers and hope for that. But um, obviously, a very disappointing outing for Jose Quintana again, and unfortunately, cost. I don't want to say cost the Mets that game, but he didn't help the Mets that day.
No, definitely not. And I would say, I mean, a lot of people are very down on Jose Quintana. And I think one, I would add that Jose Quintana isn't, um, he isn't a Kodai Senga type arm or anything like that. He's a guy that, isn't definitely not perfect. And I would also do want to give some positive notes about Jose Quintana. The stretch he had really, really helped us a lot because we needed him. Uh, and he pitched really, really well until that part. So it probably was a little bit unreasonable to expect that he would get that going for the full season that good. So hopefully it's just, a bump in this month and maybe end this month good and have a good September. And hopefully, his up and down season will trend that he has an up and a better stretch going forward. But obviously, I'm not gonna lie, there is a concern with me. It's not. I don't like to be negative about players because we all know or we are aware that the players who are with this team uh, are definitely trying. They're not going out there hoping that they have a bad start. They're not going out there just try to suck. But yeah, this one Quintana unfortunately has. So hopefully he can turn it around against the Padres and do that a second time and make it a start of a very important stretch run for us. We can only hope.
Like I said, just cross your fingers and hope that's the day Jose Quintana turned his season around. So that's the position the Mets are in, and um, you had your James McCann bobblehead, and like I said, it reminded me about how the Mets messed up that catching situation last year with eating 75% of James McCann's salary to trade into the Orioles just to sign Omar Narvaez, who was terrible, worse than what James McCann did as a Met. Um, so I mean, we can say hindsight's 2020, but I would much rather just stuck out those last 2 years with James McCann and transition Francisco Alvarez in there and have James McCann be the most expensive backup in Major League Baseball. I would have much rather had that than what the Mets did with Omar Narvaez and um, ended up DFAing him because he was so bad. So
Eventually, um, getting rid of James McCann, and we have said that I think we are probably the only Mets podcast duo in the world that both liked James McCann enough to keep him over Omar Narvaez at that time. I think we both didn't see a particular upgrade in Omar Narvaez to warrant not only paying James McCann to be on another team, but also pay Omar Narvaez. I think if you connect them both, they were paid like $22 million, and then you also had Thomas Nido, who had like a 2 point something what contract. So let's say that $24 million went to three catchers in a year, and Francisco Alvarez was the one who got the playing time. I'm aware that they didn't expect Francisco Alvarez to be the number one that quick because Omar Narvaez got hurt. They probably saw a little more potential in Omar Narvaez's bat, but I also, even with that, I think you agreed at that point. I thought James McCann was a very decent uh, defensive backup, and we both liked Thomas Nido behind the plate. So the the point we mentioned earlier about Francisco Alvarez, I would have just taken the defense out of the catcher spot and get everything that you got out of the offense. And obviously, James McCann didn't have the years we wanted to. Obviously, James McCann was better before we signed him, but I think he and Nido could still be a suitable defensive backstop duo for us to get through that year. And eventually, they tried to upgrade on the offense for a guy that got a lot of playing time but didn't hit well the year before. Exactly. I mean, partly just like James McCann did. He had good offensive years, but didn't hit well with us. So they weren't necessarily, in my view, that much different. I think Omen Narvaez had a all-star season in 2021, but that was carried because of his first half and not because he faltered in the second half and then Omen Narvaez followed with another awful offensive year. So why just keep James McCann, who is not an offensive weapon at all, but so wasn't Narvaez. So that's an old point about James McCann. I still like James McCann. I heard he was good at the ballpark. I understand that he wasn't a good Met, but that guy is a bulldog. We saw recently with the Orioles how he handled his day to not get Adley Rutschman into the game because Adley Rutschman got a day off. Their young prized Adley Rutschman, and he just took a fastball at his face, broke his nose, and kept in that ball game for just because Adley Rutschman could have his day off. So that's what you want out of your backup. And yes, he would have been expensive, but now it was even more expensive. So why bother either way?
Took the words right out of my mouth. I'll let you catch your breath there because you had your little, I don't want to say rant because they didn't get hostile, but you made some very excellent points there, especially the financial aspect that you pay have them go away for, but you're still paying Omar Narvaez and Tomas Nido, and now all three of them don't play for the team anymore, and they're still paying them. So it would have been easier just to hang on to James McCann and um, have him ride off into the sunset after this year, or you could have DFA'd him this year or whatever if you didn't really want him around. So
So back to Alvarez, be very pleased that we have a homegrown catcher that is our number one because the Mets have messed up catching for years because it wasn't the only. And we're not going to get into that maybe in an off-season show because it's probably been too long then. But I'm very pleased that we have a homegrown uh, catcher who just is ours for years to come without paying much.
no,
Probably eventually we have to pay him, but you
right,
know what I mean.
yeah, no question about that. And hopefully, when Francisco Alvarez gets his agency thing resolved, that means they'll pick up where they left off with those potential contract negotiations about buying out his years and eating some of those free agent years. So I'd be very much in favor of that. It's time to start acting like that team down south, in my opinion, when it comes to homegrown talent. We've been saying, banging that drum for years. So um, let's bang it again. Be more like the Atlanta Braves when it comes to treating your homegrown players and whatnot. Obviously, it takes two to tango with contract negotiations, but he starts to establish this culture that Stearns and Mendoza are doing right now. It seems like the players are really buying in, and I think maybe some other players who aren't playing for this team are taking notice. Because when you have stuff like that, it does play a factor in um, these contract negotiations. That's why the Atlanta Braves, these guys are probably taking undervalued deals. To go to the open market, they make a lot more, but they have this established culture and they like playing there. And the Braves gave them deals they feel were fair, and um, that's why Austin Riley's going to be one of the more perhaps underpaid third baseman, but at top of all these lists whenever he gets healthy yet again. So that's just my little rant there about the time to start acting like that team in your division. And to do that, also, you need to win ball games. And the Mets did that by winning the rubber game on Wednesday, a 4-3 win over the Baltimore Orioles. Another walk-off home run, this time thanks to Jesse Winker. The Mets were up in this game 2-0, and um, Sean Manaea was dealing. It was perfect through the first, what was it, 17 batters, I believe. And then unfortunately, a hit by pitch with 2 outs, and then a home run from Austin Slater tied the game. Mets did get that run back thanks to Mark Vientos, but the Orioles got a run in the eighth to tie the game. Edwin Diaz came in the ninth like he did on Monday and shut the door there in the ninth to give the Mets a chance to walk it off in the bottom half, and they did that thanks to Jesse Winker with his pinch hit. So the Mets take the rubber game from the Orioles 4-3. Someone on this. Well, I guess we let's go back. Let's go. We're going to go back in time here. And listen to our player predictions from back in the beginning of this Orioles series.
I'm going with Shalmanaya. I think that's definitely the outing where, on paper, as you mentioned, we need some shutout baseball. I think he came off a very good outing to reclaim his confidence after his, a little bit of a rough outing. But overall, he's been money since the All-Star break. So I'm hopeful that he keeps that going and gives us a chance on Wednesday because Zach Eflin is pretty nasty.
I'm going to go with someone who none of us have picked this year, and that's mostly because he hasn't even been a Met for a month now. But I'm going to go with Jesse Winker, who's gotten some good at bats of late. He's picked up hits in some of his recent starts. Obviously, Winker's not going to play every game, especially with a lefty on the mound tonight. But Jesse Winker seems like he is taking advantage of his playing time when he is in there. So let's go with Jesse Winker to have a good series against the Orioles and to hit his first home run as a New York Met. Those guys sound like a couple of geniuses, if you ask me. That's just my opinion. Shamanaya, great outing. Jesse Winker, big hit. First home run as a New York Met, as someone predicted. So let's give ourselves a good pat on the back there with our player predictions.
Yeah, I think we did well. Unfortunately, Sean, a bit of a David Peterson outing where maybe that hit by pitch to avoid the perfect game was maybe in the right next batter hit a home run. But I think Sean and I have threw the ball really well, 9 strikeouts. And then Jesse Winker, who I don't think had done anything until that moment in this series. So he saved your prediction with his walk-off hit. You also predicted his first home run. So Jesse Winker really came true for you there because until that point it was an ugly prediction, and obviously.
No, but you know what? He hit the big home run to win the game. So I'm gonna pat myself on the back there. Don't do that very often. You know, I'm a very humble guy. So yeah,
Yeah, extremely humble.
we had
You're
to
one
give
of the most.
we had to give ourselves some flowers there with our player predictions. But probably more you than me when it came to the player and how they performed
Uh,
overall.
I don't know. You also said home run, which I thought was that that made it even a better prediction.
Right.
Uh, I think you could debate if Manaya or Peterson was the best starter because we got two great starting pitching outings. They both went seven. So maybe if the umpire didn't suck,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
Manaya wouldn't have allowed that third run because that 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 ball four ball.
It was gonna be a strike him out, throw him out.
Exactly, because the umpire was clearly looking at the home plate from, hey, uh, what's your call? Uh, and it wouldn't be necessary if he was safe. So the umpire at second base was ready to make the move, but then he noticed that it was ball four. So yeah, and then obviously that run wouldn't have scored. So, but on the other end, then Jesse Winker. So also the umpire saved your ass with getting the opportunity to homer there. So hey, all worked out for it. All worked well out well. We had a great fun moment with Jesse Walker's emphatic celebration, I would say, with his great post game comments. So in the end, thank you, home plate umpire, because I, I wouldn't have missed that. I was just home in time to see that, so that was extra sweet for me. I did watch the rest of the innings back this morning, but that was a sweet moment and a sweet moment for the Mets, and it definitely is a better feeling than it probably would have been if we kept the 3-2 lead. So which would also be a good feeling, by the way. But so in the end, home plate umpire, thank you, but damn, he was awful that game. I haven't seen his umpire scorecards yet, but I bet it would be pretty bad.
Yeah, home plate umpire Marvin Hudson. So we'll throw his name out there. But yes, I haven't seen the umpire scorecard yet. So, but like you said, it's probably not going to be very good. And that 3-2 pitch is probably going to be the number one missed call on that scorecard. So,
Yeah, it depends because it's also the situation.
hmm,
And we had some bases loaded situations, so he was bad all game.
yeah.
So I would bet he made some more bad calls. So
Hmm.
eventually, it could be the case that we were benefited more than the Orioles in this game. But for me, this missed call felt for a fan to watch it like worse, but it could definitely be that the Orioles had it worse with this guy.
Yeah, probably Ryan O'Hearn has something to say about that. And that, I believe it was the 1-1 call. So it
He did.
eventually got him
He
ejected.
had something to. He had something to say. That's why he got ejected. Exactly.
But um, yeah, just a good day overall for the New York Mets. And something I didn't listen to the post game press conferences or anything like that, but I was thinking about this as we were talking about Jesse Winker. We go back to Monday's game. He pinched hit in the bottom of the ninth there before Alvarez, and he struck out against Sir Anthony Dominguez. Fast forward Wednesday, he comes back against Sir Anthony Dominguez and hits that walk-off home run. So maybe there's something Jesse Winker learned about Sir Anthony. On Monday, he carried over to his at bat on uh, on Wednesday, maybe he said, all right, this situation, he likes to come with this pitch, so let's be ready for this fastball, and took it out. So let's not discount the fact that maybe the Monday at bat also helped him in this at bat as well. We've seen that happen a lot of times in baseball. So just a thought, I don't know if that's what Jesse said in his post game at all, but maybe that
No,
played a
but
factor into that.
I think it's definitely true that the more times you see a pitcher, the better at bats you're gonna get. We have seen multiple times when pitchers face a team in back-to-back starts. Mostly the second one isn't as great. I always applaud a pitcher that is able to shut down a lineup twice in a row in back-to-back starts. Um, so yeah, that's probably definitely the case. Also, Sir Anthony Dominguez probably hates the Mets a little bit.
Yeah, probably. It's a I don't know if he's a free agent or not, but I mean, but I guess either way, he's with the Orioles next year. He's going to play the Mets next year. He's going to face Francisco Alvarez. So if you didn't like if you didn't like Alvarez's celebration, he might have something to say about that next year. But that's like bridge will cross from the if we get there.
Then,
So
then he probably loved Jesse. I thought Jesse Waker's celebration was more emphatic
oh yeah,
than Alvarez.
oh
So
yeah. I mean, spiking your helmet, you haven't even touched first base yet.
yes,
Throwing down the elbow guard.
yeah,
So,
laid it down so the first base coach could pick it up, probably.
but
But moving on.
moving on, the Mets win 2 of 3 from the Baltimore Orioles, and with a loss last night by the Atlanta Braves, the Mets pick up a game on the Braves, so they are now a game and a half back of Atlanta for that final wild card spot. The Braves and Phillies battle today as well, but we know the more important game is the one happening in San Diego tonight. We'll get there eventually, but that's what our current up to date standings in the National League wild card. But now we've done a lot at the major league level. It's time to dip down into the minor league level for I'd say what is going to be a much shorter minor league minute compared to the last one for Mr. Corne Hogeveen. And I will hand the keys to the vehicle over to you for right now.
Alrighty. Yes, minor league baseball, Dominican Summer League. Last 2 games of the year were played Monday and Tuesday. Third home run of the year for Alex Acosta. He went 2 for 3 on Monday, driving in 2 runs. Alvaro Matos, who just got signed on August 4th, an 18-year-old from the Dominican, is having a strong start to his pro career with an 808 OPS. He went 1 for 2 with 2 runs and 2 stolen bases on Monday. Elvis Marias has been on fire. He went 5 scoreless, allowing just 3 hits and collecting 7 strikeouts. In his last 5 outings, he has gone 21 innings, allowed just 3 runs but 1 earned. And in that span, he hasn't issued a walk and struck out 28 batters. And I think those are crazy numbers there. Giovanni Rodriguez keeps hitting well in August, going 2 for 5 with 2 doubles on Monday and 3 for 5 with a triple and 3 RBIs in his last game on Tuesday. And 968 OPS in August and this year. It's great to see a guy who has been signed to a big contract really struggled in the first 2 months of the Dominican Summer League, but ended well. I think that's a great sign. Vladdy Gomez went 2 for 4 with 3 runs and his 28 stolen base and 2 outfield assists. He drove in 1, ended this year with a 767 OPS. Jermaine Verdu ended this year strong with 3 innings, allowing just 1 unearned run. ERA fairly high, but 50 strikeouts over 40 innings. Haniel German hit his 7th home run of the year in a 2 for 4 day, ended this year with a 751 OPS. And catcher Jose Aular, who played just 21 games this year, went 2 for 2 on Tuesday and ended his season with a 916 OPS. So again, I will mention that the Dominican Summer League unfortunately has been ended, as we have done multiple times on this show. I want to thank oh God, I didn't remember his Twitter handle. So I'm gonna get back to it. Andrew's gonna look it up.
I got you
So
covered.
I'm gonna move on to St. Lucie. Boston Barrel with another multi-hit day as he went 3 for 4 on Tuesday, and he also went 2 for 4 with his 4th home run on Wednesday. Carson Bench had a 1 for 3 day and doing what you hope a first rounder does, having a 1018 OPS. AJ Ewan went 2 for 4 with a double in a Tuesday's loss. Remember, there's a question for you, so you can respond and then give the kudos to the guy I want to give kudos to. And remember Cal Crick?
I do remember Kyle Crick.
Yeah, we signed him, and he made his first rehab outing, getting 1 out, allowing 2 walks and a run, obviously a little bit rusty. Irving Coda allowed a run over 2 2/3 innings of work, and Jose De Leon struck out 4 over 2 innings of work in that Tuesday loss. Welcome back, Chad Williams, the Mets prospect. Played his first rehab game with St. Lucie Mets yesterday and went 1 for 3 with a stolen base. And A.G. Ewan went yard, but the pitching struggled in a Wednesday's loss. And I'm going to give it to you because you have the kudos to the guy.
Oh, yes, I have it right here. BK Fan 09. All your
That was
Dominican
it.
Summer League Mets news as well as Florida Complex League when they're rocking and rolling.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Moving on to Brooklyn. Brooklyn showing some power in a 10-9 loss on Tuesday. DeAndre Smith is his 2nd, William Lugo is 7th, and Junior Tillian is 6th. DeAndre Smith drove him 4 and is hitting well in August. Jack Weniger allowed 6 runs over 5 2/3 innings, but just 2 earned. He struck out 6. Binghamton, I have an easier week for Binghamton, as Andrew will provide you all the things you need to know about the Rumble Ponies win on Tuesday. Want to do that now, or do you want to do it after I'm done?
I'll let you have your moment in the sun, and then you can cue me up for the Tuesday scouting report from Binghamton.
All right. All right. Well, on Wednesday, Matt Rudick went 3 for 3 with a double and an RBI in 3-2 win. Jordan Gerber allowed just 2 runs over 6 innings of work in the win for Binghamton. Syracuse, 2 home runs in the ninth walks it off for Syracuse on Tuesday after Mike Brousseau homered in the 3rd. The Syracuse Mets got solo shots from Eddie Rosario to tie it and DJ Stewart to win it. That wouldn't have happened if Dominic Hamill was bad, but he was strong, allowing just 2 runs over 5 innings with 5 strikeouts. He did allow 9 base runners, but still held the opposition just 2 runs. The bullpen was awesome behind him. Daniel Nunez made a rehab outing and touched 97 in the scoreless inning. allowing one hit and striking out one. Eric Oishi struck out three over 1 2/3 scoreless, and Alex Young got the win with 1 1/3 scoreless. Drew Gilbert hit his second home run of the year in an injury-plagued year. It's good to see him back. Austin Allen also homered as a pinch hitter, and Brad Beatty went 2 for 4 with a double and an RBI. Unfortunately, Brandon Sproat, this is the Wednesday game, had a bad outing, allowing 6 runs in 5, and most noticeable, he didn't strike out or walk a batter. He allowed 3 home runs in the loss. And here's Andrew
Oh,
with
well,
the
well yeah.
Tuesday Binghamton Rumble Ponies scouting report.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I was in Binghamton on Tuesday to catch the game down there. Have to give a shout out to Jacob Wilkins and Matt Levine, the play-by-play guys for the Binghamton Rebel Ponies. They're good dudes. They always welcome me with open arms, so I have to thank them for letting me stick around in the broadcast booth before the game, after the game, all that good stuff. So big shout out to them, and a big shout out to them for their work on these game notes that they gave me, the press box game notes. There's a lot of good information in there. Um, so I feel a little special. I got this special access to these notes, and I mean, like we were talking before, they go pretty in depth with a lot of things, but I won't share that information. Um, but for the pitchers as well, they have pitch arsenal. They got everything listed that they throw, and their average miles per hour and whatnot. So like it helps you give a good indication if a guy's kind of got his good stuff or not that night. And Nolan McLean on the mound that night for Binghamton. How lucky was I? He was definitely on, arguably his best double A outing, going 6 innings, 1 run ball, 4 hits, no walks, which is obviously huge, 5 strikeouts. This was coming off a good outing he had against Portland, which at that time was, or actually, no, he had a little bit of a longer outing against Somerset earlier in the year. But the 6 inning outing was the longest of his career in the Mets minor league system. So some positive strides there for Nolan McLean. And talking to Jacob before the game, as we know now, Nolan is focused on pitching, not doing double duty, hitting and pitching. He was telling me that Nolan told him that his body is feeling a little bit better of late now that he's just focusing on one rather than the other. So now maybe with just being set as a starter, this is going to be a nice little upward trajectory of good starts here for Noel McLean. So keep an eye out for him. Obviously, Ryan Clifford is probably the headliner when it comes to the position players who are currently on the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, and I really like what I saw from Ryan Clifford. You look at the on base percentage; it's been good all year, even in Brooklyn. But the slug has been really good since getting called up to Double A Binghamton, and he hit a long fly ball that sounded really good coming off the bat. So obviously, you'd like to see maybe that batting average come up a little bit from that. I believe it's in the 220s right now. So if Brian Clifford starts to swing a nice bat, to figure that batting average is going to come up. So is that on base percentage and slugging percentage. So I think there's something there with Ryan Clifford. I mean, it's only just you know, one outing, I guess, or the one game I've seen him, but there's a lot of stuff there that I liked. And if we're going to talk about, who could be a potential Deadnell Nunez next year for the New York Mets, Trey McLaughlin is a guy I would maybe target as a Deadnell Nunez for next year. He throws a lot of sliders. I noticed. No, not a high velocity guy with his fastball. I think he was topping out maybe 91. But just from a fact or from a point of a guy who's probably not maybe going to get an invite to big league camp. He's probably going to be more in minor league camp. Uh, but he's having a really good year for Binghamton. He's pitched to a 2.01 ERA. He's got a 1.11 WHIP, 39 strikeouts, and 32 and a third innings pitched. So, like I said, for someone that doesn't throw hard, having those strikeout numbers, it says a lot. Probably more about that slider than anything, and how good it can be. He has had a couple. He's had a cup of coffee with Syracuse this year. Only one outing, but it was a scoreless outing. Did have 2 strikeouts for Syracuse as well. So, um, I mean, I would have to think at this point or sometime soon he might be getting called back up to AAA. So, uh, Trey McLaughlin could be next year's Denell Nunez. Um, Obviously, Kevin Parada is still down there. The thing that stinks about Parada was he hit a ball really hard. Like any other day, it's going to be a home run, but the wind was gusting in from left field, so it got knocked down. What I noticed with Parada is just a lot. And even watching the game last night on MLB.TV, um, just he's hitting the ball on the ground a lot, which is not good for a guy like Parada. So if he can start to lift the ball a little bit more, um, maybe he kind of get back to where we thought he would be coming out of Georgia Tech. But no, but that hard hit ball was enough to make me think like he still got something in there. Can he find it for next year at least, and maybe start to reestablish himself as a good hitter in this organization? I, hopefully that happens next year. Uh, but I have so it was enough to where I did not lose complete hope on Kevin Parada. Um, but overall, a lot of good things, a lot of positives from some high end talent in this Mets minor league system that are with the Binghamton Rumble Ponies at the moment. So Ryan Clifford, I think, could potentially be the real deal for the Mets down the line. So, like we've talked about, if the Mets want to move on from Alonso, if they don't want to meet the price point and they just want to find a stopgap and have Clifford be the first baseman of the future, there's a lot of good traits there that would help in that way of thinking. So remains to be seen, but I really like what I saw from Ryan Clifford. That was probably my biggest takeaway from what is usually a pitching podcast. So it says a lot about what Ryan Clifford showed me that night. So there's your Binghamton Tuesday night report.
Yeah, that's longer than my whole Match Minor League Minute report. No, good stuff, Andrew. Trey McLaughlin, I was shocked that he was returned to Double A after he got that one outing in Syracuse. I think he's having a year where he earns uh, the promotion and he earns to stay. And he's, to me, he's definitely a guy that I will keep my eye on for next year. Hopefully, when he's in the Syracuse bullpen for the whole year, and be a co-op at some point. I really do believe that that's a good possibility, honestly. So good. So that's a compliment for you because
No, thank you,
that's
thank
exactly what you are saying. I just wanna,
you.
uh, I wanna, add that to it.
Sure. Yeah. So there's our minor league report here on the Queens Connection. So we'll transition back to the major league level because as we wrap up this show here, there is a huge 4 game series to talk about. Starting tonight in San Diego against the Padres, uh, and late night baseball. So do whatever you gotta do to stay awake because the like to this point in the season, these are the most important games the New York Mets are playing for the next week. Um, so it all starts tonight in San Diego, like we said. Uh, it's a good pitching matchup tonight. Luis Severino going against Dylan Cease. We know the Mets beat around Dylan Cease when the Padres are back in New York, but obviously Dylan Cease has done a lot of good things since then, including the no hitter. So Dylan Cease is not always as vulnerable as he was back in mid June at Citi Field. So hopefully a good pitching matchup there. Friday night can be Paul Blackburn going up against Joe Musgrove, excuse me. Well, I had a little. I was a little distracted because I had something on my ear. I had to get that off. If you know what I'm talking. If you know, you know.
you know, Musgrave, is there something about that you want to share with us? Maybe your wishes after the playoffs?
No, no, no. Just maybe some dyslexia kicking in there. Those looking like an A there. No, Joe Musgrove getting the start for the Padres. That's Friday night. That's a 9:40 first pitch, as well as tonight is a 9:40 first pitch. Saturday 8:40, so an hour earlier. That's going to be David Peterson against Michael King for your Saturday night prime time. And then Sunday afternoon, well, at 4:10, I guess. I guess that's still afternoon, not quite evening yet. It's going to be Jose Quintana going up against Martin Perez, as we alluded to earlier. That's a soft toss and lefty matchup, and hopefully, between those two guys who have struggled for the majority of the year, hopefully it's the guy getting the start for the road team that uh, has the good outing there. So 4 games. important games against the San Diego Padres as the Mets are chasing that final wild card spot. Padres obviously a team occupying a spot in front of them. So if the New York Mets want to take the series from the Padres or even split, but let's think positive here. Let's be super duper positive. Let's say they want to take 3 of 4 from the San Diego Padres. They're gonna need some guys to step up. And the guys we picked the last series, they did step up in different ways. So, with that being said, it's time to pick our player of the series. This time I get the pitcher and you get the hitter, so you get a little bit more time to think because we are a pitching podcast. So I get to go first, and I'm going to take the guy who's arguably, well, I guess maybe other than Shamanaya, but their second best starter of late. That's probably David Peterson. So I'm going to take David Peterson, the low hanging fruit, the David Peterson lover that I am. I'm going to take him to have a good outing for the Mets. It seems like 9 times out of 10 the Mets uh, do win when David Peterson pitches. He gets some good run support the majority of the time. So let's say that trend continues when David Peterson takes the mound on Saturday night in San Diego. So David Peterson to have a solid outing for the New York Mets Saturday, and that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with my man David Peterson.
I think you picked David Peterson for like 80% of your
It's not true.
prediction.
Not earlier in the year because he was hurt. So
Well, we didn't start because I used to do the predictions of the series, and then you just didn't predict anything. So because you were well, I'm not going to say that on the air. But now, but then since it started, maybe Peterson was healthy back then, and then since then it's been like 80% David Peterson pick. We have to look into that.
well, why don't you go pick
No,
your? Why don't you stop ridiculing me? Pick who's going to perform at the plate in this series.
remember the last the Padres at home, the guy who carried us in that series. Um, not probably not the guy that you pick right now, but I'm gonna pick him anyway. JD Martinez. It's time for him to have his, carrying the ball club kind of series. Again, a guy who I believe has probably one of the better numbers when the pressure is on. Uh, I think I still see him as a clutch hitter. This is a series where the pressure will be on. So the veteran, the professional, the guy who maybe isn't having his best year for us, but still has helped this team on multiple occasions, gonna carry us this series to hopefully a series win.
JD coming off 2 home runs against the Baltimore Orioles, so maybe he's found a little bit of his swing, and he's going to carry that over out west with him and tee off on the Padres like he did back in June. So if JD Martinez did that, I would not complain at all. So hopefully JD, like you said, maybe not.
We did about JD Martinez earlier this week, so
Yeah.
I
So
most I mostly pick the guys that you complain about.
I
I
didn't
did
compl-
it last time.
I didn't complain about JD Martinez. I was just saying I was just asking the question, you look at those numbers, are you a little disappointed with what JD gave you? But you made the point that, you know, it's more maybe what he's contributed in the clubhouse for a guy like Mark Vientos that's been maybe a bigger impact than what he's done on the field, which is true. I'll give you credit for that. But obviously you would, would knowing who JD Martinez is, you would maybe like to see the slug a little bit higher and stuff like that. So I was just asking the question. I wasn't mad at JD Martinez. I was just asking you your opinion if on JD Martinez this season. So don't make it out like I'm a JD Martinez hater.
You're such a softy on the podcast.
Oh, that's not true. Why don't you go ask Pete Alonso?
Yeah, that's true. All right. I think I can ask Pete Alonso, but then he said, I have no idea who Andrew
He
Bennett
probably
is.
no.
So
He's like, I don't care what that loser thinks.
he probably doesn't say it because Pete Alonso doesn't necessarily say what he thinks, I guess. But
Probably true. That is probably true. So, well, I think we're going to wrap things up here. We're well over an hour, but there was a lot to
wow.
talk about in just 3 games and plus minor leagues and all that good stuff. So, we'll wrap things up here. We'll thank Mr. Corne Hogeveen for uh, being on the show yet again, even though he is the co-host. So we were blessed with your appearances on this show, Mr. Hogeveen. So we feel very lucky to have you here,
We? You and who?
and the listeners.
All right.
What do you think I was talking about, Max the dog?
I don't know. Maybe you have another personality or something. I
Nah,
see different. I see a different Andrew than outside podcast Andrew.
that that's true. You get to see the different side of me when we're rolling. It's I tell people this like too in radio. It's people might say stuff on air like you might hate someone on WFAN, but it's just a stick. It's all acting. It's wanting to get people to listen and draw ratings and whatnot. It's truly an act. So it's the same thing here. I might seem something. You might have one opinion of me being on the air, but it might be completely different off the air. So then maybe you like me off the air more. Who knows? So. Uh,
I think people like on the air more.
Probably on the air more. I would definitely agree with that. Well, they should like me off the air because we got some tickets to give away for the Mets Red Sox game on Labor Day. There's just a couple days left to get in the draw. We're going to draw the winner on the show next Monday. That's the 26th. So, just go to our Facebook, Twitter. Just search the Queen's Connection. We'll pop right up. Make sure you're like or following us. Comment on the post that says why we should pick you, and we will announce the winner on Monday on the show. But if you miss out on that one, don't worry. We're gonna have tickets to give away for a couple more games this season. So you might strike out on Monday, but there's still a chance you could get a base hit with two other games here on our slate for ticket giveaways. So don't worry about that. But make sure you like and subscribe wherever you listen on YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff. So we thank you for listening. Hopefully, it's a fun 4-game series in San Diego, and we hope you enjoy that. And we will talk to you on Monday before a big series against the Arizona Diamondbacks.